Good morning, everyone. John471 here to discuss the S&P 500. Today is Wednesday, May 28th, 2025. Allow me to read our disclaimer. Derivatives trading is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Let's begin today, as we always do, with our news. A little bit more going on today. Not a great deal. We had Kashkari spoke at 4 a.m. this morning. We also got our 7 a.m. mortgage apps. And we also have some earnings that are reporting today, most notably NVIDIA. That's a important earning that's coming out today. Continuing on, we also have the Richmond Fed, which is a very minor regional Fed survey. And continuing on, a few Treasury announcements, including a 2-year note auction and a 5-year note auction. And then in the afternoon at 2 p.m., we have the Fed minutes, which will also be significant today. So that's what we have on the docket in terms of scheduled news releases. Let's move on to our charts. Okay, here we are on our chart of the S&P 500 futures. Full session, daily candles. And the narrative that we'll just check in with on this chart, and get my Epic pen here, is, as I say every day, we had this area of trade, big part of the March range that was really what we were looking to get back into. We were able, the next big target, talked about a lot, 58.21s. And what we've seen since we were able to push through those 58.21s is that they have stayed bid, meaning that is a price that is supported. As you can see, like right around here, as soon as we got into that sort of gravitational pull, we rallied above it, pushed not quite to our next target, which is 6,000. It's like 98s we touched. So we're looking for the high is right around 6,000. The next major target is the 6030s-ish, corresponding with an HVN in this area. But anyway, so we saw that 58.21s go bid. We see the pullback here. Not a lot of time spent below 58.21s before we quickly rallied. One of these days is the holiday. It's this day right here. So we should be aware of that day being a holiday. But regardless, let's zoom into what we got going on in this important area here, just to kind of take a second with it. As I've kind of emphasized, we're sort of putting in like an island situation where we have, this area of trade down here, and then we have this area of trade up here, and they have not, we haven't closed that unauctioned region fully. As you see, we kind of opened here, rallied, the pullback just didn't get back to those lows, and now here we are again trading above the VPOC of this region. So the big question that we have right now, in my opinion, is just, do we take this high? Do we push up to take this high? Or do we fail to take this high and continue and stay in this balance? That's the first question in my opinion about what we're going to do. This high is there's a lot of distance to this high. It's still like 60 points away from where we are right now. But that's not anything we can't do in a day. Let's go to a smaller time frame chart and plan for more specific price action. Okay, let's take a quick look at the market profile chart, because I do think there's a lot to see here on this chart. Prior to our high, we can see that value, what color could I use here that's going to be good? Let's do a green. Green seems like it should work. All right, so we see that value is just moving higher here until we get to this day, and then value starts very clearly moving down. I talked a lot about this distribution, looking at it as resistance. We're back to it again, but we weren't able to get it that day. We were just released lower, had an attempt to hold here and just flush through. So what we should notice, though, I mean, recall on the prior chart how I was talking about below this area, we had this like an unauctioned region that wasn't fully like closed off, wasn't fully retested. And notice how we have the same thing going on here, where there's an attempt to hold here. We gapped lower, traded these prices, and then we have not closed off this. We haven't retested this area yet. We rallied on the holiday. This is the holiday. It's not visible because holidays aren't on this RTH chart. And then yesterday, you see that we just continued. There was no, we couldn't get into this area, and there's a gap zone now. What also we need to know is this area of singles that has been around. We rallied right through it and left additional singles below, and then we have these singles as well, these smaller singles. During yesterday's Convergent trade talk, these were a big deal for me going in. Like in our trade talk, I pretty much said, if these don't get closed off, if we don't fall beneath these and thus closing them, and then find ourselves unable to get back above, until we do that, don't even think about shorts. Don't even think about it. It doesn't make any sense to consider shorts until those singles are closed. And sure enough, into the close, what do? We pushed down, we gave one quick touch into the singles, unable to close them, and then just rallied up and started taking highs again. So very valuable to be aware of these single prints and sort of what they suggest. And to me, like what was being suggested yesterday was we saw a wave of buying, not enough sellers available. And as long as those single prints were open, to me, that suggested that the momentum of this initial push was still intact. And it seems to be still intact. We're pushing highs right now. But regardless, the big targets yesterday were the naked VPOCs right here and right here. I wasn't sure if we would get to them even on a rally day, and we didn't. But they're still the targets today. Let's move on to a smaller time frame chart and discuss specific price action. Okay, so here we are on our chart of the S&P 500. This is intraday. And again, as always, the lavender areas are the overnight trade. This is a 1 point by 4 P&F chart, just so we're aware. And we'll discuss bullish ideas first, because I am by default bullish. Why am I by default bullish? Well, here's our day yesterday, as we can see. Here are our single prints just discussed in pink. And what you see here in the overnight trade, let's just discuss this for a minute because this matters before we go into anything else. Our overnight trade here, you just heard me talk about these single prints and how if they don't go offered, then I don't have an interest in structurally going short. And here we see on our reopen, we pushed higher, took out the high immediately of the prior day, just finished the auction as we expect. This is like accelerator program stuff happening in real time. Trend day, well, actually yesterday began with an open reject reverse, which is a rather unusual, but open reject reverse opening type, and then pure trend all day. And then we got the, just as we talk about, we got the expected continuation, check higher. And then what happened at that, we did find a fair amount of sellers. You can see an offer, it looks like, and then we released lower back into the prior day's VPOC. And you can see right here as price pushed lower, then we had this very clear line right there. That is obviously where the seller was selling. Like this is obviously where, like he was like, oh, I want to sell as much as I can up here. No one bought it. He had to go and say, oh, well, I'll sell it right here instead. And there are people that are willing to buy it at these prices. And then what happened? We pushed through the key area, the singles, and then what did we see below this key area, the singles? Looks like there's still buyers there, doesn't it? That's what I think. So we don't know what will happen. We don't know if we go down, if we get another pullback, if all of a sudden all the buyers are done. We don't know. But however, we just saw that pretty objectively, buyers there. Let's talk about what could happen today now in light of this. Starting with bullish ideas, as I noted, we just saw the rejection, and also we have a double distribution profile in effect in the ES. So undoubtedly, if we just hold this double distribution, which is not, it's not necessarily a high percentage, but if the buyers are just that strong that we hold this double distribution, and that could include something like a pullback right to the VPOC, test through it, just sort of hear how we see a test and then reversion. Something like that. If we continue to see the support here and push higher, really I'll be looking at this 36 zone, which is right around yesterday's high. If we're able to continue to find support in this 24 zone, which is very important, or not even get there, if we just hold above this this 36 zone, either way, you guessed it, I'm looking for the overnight high. I'm looking for a test of the overnight high and really a test of this zone in the mid-century area. Now here is the thing, in my opinion. I think that this zone, this little zone, is fairly important because I think that, I'm open to, if we get into this zone and we accept prices, potentially stops going off and us getting fairly quickly to the next zone, which is the 60s, and that's the first VPOC that I've been talking about. Actually, I'm sorry, the second. The first one's these 48s, the second is the 60s. So basically the completion of the trade that I talked about yesterday, if we hold this overnight low, and especially if we hold this key LVN, I will be looking for the completion of this trade that I talked about yesterday. What happens if we get that completion then? Well, one of two things. Either A, we could see us continue to kind of hold the mid-century and we start to just rally, grind higher zone to zone, looking for, what are we looking for? We're looking for this naked settle in confluence of the prior week's high. Big area up here. This is all the congestion ahead of that key 6,000 figure. All of this. So who knows how we could act up here? I'm not sure, but this area is the target. If we get through these 90s, then we're looking at 6,000. But really our first two key targets, boom and boom, right there. And then we know the situation above here. Can we get this with a pullback? We definitely can. We definitely can get a pullback. But what I'm going to say is if we get below this 25 zone, everybody sees this. If we get below this 25 zone, then I need to see a really clear setup. Where could that setup happen? I'm not really sure, to be honest. I have a zone here. This area could be the area that it holds. Regardless, I'm not picking areas here. I would have to see price push through, take out these, find some support maybe around here, who knows where, and then a nice strong impulse to trade against. And ideally, if we see a push below these singles, I would want to see the support happen, see the reversion, and then I would be more comfortable playing the long above this zone when I see that everything down here is not actually where we want to trade. I would want to see this get to be finished, see it stops run, and then see the impulse back out. That would be the most comfortable way to play along in this situation. There is also the possibility that we just push down to here and get a very small lick check, and that works, but that would be more outside in until we get back above this key zone, in which case I'd be like, okay, I can be long from a structural point of view once we get above here. If I'm taking a long down here, it's going to be outside in. Okay, what are the ways that this whole bullish idea can go wrong? Plenty of ways this could all just not work out. The one way that we could see us not take the overnight high. How could we not take the overnight high? Well, we just put in this high. We could revert back into the prior day's range, back into this LVN, and everyone, just like I said, you'd assume people are thinking this is a buy, but if we get back in there and what actually is going on is OTF has a whole lot that they really want to sell in this area before we start getting into mid-century, very possible. If the offers line up here, then what we might see instead is a pullback to here. It attempts, it can't get through, a lower high. Those are going to be the big signals. And then start seeing us take out these single prints. If I see this lower highs, this might be an opportunity to look for an outside in short back to prior settle or this zone. However, I will be very, very, very cautious with any shorts above the 25s. Very cautious with any shorts above the 25s. Because it might look like it just wants to dump, but bids just might keep lining up and just frustrate any shorts. That's a possibility, but however, what we're talking about is if we see the series of lower highs and we fall through this 25 zone, get into this 08 zone, find ourselves unable to get back, then it's starting to look more reversion-like to me, in which case, like I said, initial target here would be this 07 zone. If we break through, then quite clearly we're targeting Sentry. If Century is not well bid, then we're targeting the bottom of these singles to close this off. If we close these singles today, guys, first off, I'm not expecting it. I'm not expecting these singles to close, but I can be wrong. I'm wrong plenty of times. So if I'm wrong and we do close these singles, I think that not only will I be wrong, but I think that many participants will be wrong, and we may see some extension. I would go zone to zone. I would still need to see a really nice setup to initiate a short down here. And this would be, like I said, this would be a very unexpected situation to close the singles and continue. I'm just covering it because it's a possibility. But I think that would be a big surprise if we close the singles and continue today. What I'm most expecting today, to be honest with you, is, my most expected idea is probably for the overnight low to hold and for the trade to kind of frustratingly grind to these targets. That's my most expected idea. But anything could happen. What could our nothing day be? Our nothing day could really be the most expected idea, which just kind of holds this area bid, but then doesn't really give us too much to do in that theme. Like if we just work up, take this out, kind of fall down, don't really take the low, but don't really give a good long. This could just be a very choppy, sort of grindy day that gets the targets we're talking about, but does not really give a great trade. As well, if we fall, if sellers are very strong in this area, and this is actually a fairly significant possibility. If we kind of push down to this area, we start to give the long trade. It looks like it's a long, and then we fall through here, and there is just more selling that needs to be done. We could just chop around within yesterday's range and just clean up these singles. That would be a nothing day that would be very outside in. But regardless, 17 minutes, pretty long this time. I'm going to cut it off here. I hope this is complete. I hope that this is of use to you in one way or another. I hope you also hit the like button and get us to that 10,000 subscriber level. It's a big deal. We need to get to 10,000 subscribers before the S&Ps gets to 6,000. Let's make that a goal. Let's try that. It's a race. But anyway, that's what I got for you. Any questions, ask me in the chat room. Always happy to help. I hope this is complete. I hope it helps you today. Hope you're having a wonderful morning, and I hope your wonderful morning continues. Let's get out there and clock those ticks. Ciao.